books.
Yeah. Now make sure, like I say, you're not. This does not release you from the obligation of reading the first chapter in that book. But let's talk about the General Motors. Let's look at the first question on that test. The General Motors EV1 was what type of vehicle? Was it a totally electric powered vehicle, a parallel type hybrid electric vehicle, a series type hybrid electric vehicle, the first generation hybrid electric vehicle? That was, the answer to that one is A. That was a totally electric powered vehicle. All right. Next, and remember, I'm gonna familiarize you with these terms as we go. We got which type of hybrid uses 36 to 42 volts? That would be your mild hybrid. Your mild hybrid vehicle.
This one's got an engine.
Like you got you got a medium, you got a full, and you got a strong hybrid. Some of these GM vehicles, a lot of them will have a great big starter generator with a huge, big, thick belt on it, belted onto the front of the crankshaft. And whenever you pull up on those and stop, you know, you would basically, the engine would stall, and then whenever you got ready to take off, it's kind of like a golf cart. You know how you starter generator. That's how it would take off. That saves you from idling, you know, and burning your gas and all that kind of stuff. What type of hybrid vehicle is capable of propelling the vehicle by just using the electric motor? That would be the strong full hybrid. The strong full hybrid. That's going to be like your Toyota and your Prius, and then your Ford Escape.
What about that new Volt they come out with? Does it have a motor too?
The Volt, the Chevy Volt, which Chevrolet is buying all them back. It's got a 1.4 liter motor, a 3-gallon gas tank. Huh?
Buying them back, what do you mean?
Because they're afraid to catch fire. If their GM wants everybody to bring those Chevy Volts back because they're afraid to go catch fire.
Didn't they just hit the market though?
Yeah.
They just did, but they're $45,000 for one that's that fully outfitted. But
what? No, that's that. I'm thinking of the Acura that's $20,000 up there that they had it in Detroit.
Yeah, I know, right? But them Volts are like
Nissan catching
45 or 46,000.
fire. The battery catching fire was getting too hot, and there was some issues with that. Apparently, I don't know what was causing it. I mean, there's some, but it's kind of like, anytime they're thinking that somebody's going to get hurt, or injured, and they're going to have liability, they get worried, and somehow that got past them, and it never happened, and the one got out in the field. That kind of stuff happens too. The Chevrolet Vega. Anybody know what a Chevrolet Vega is?
Yes.
It's a silly little aluminum block 4-cylinder engine. And that thing, General Motors tested that engine in the laboratory for thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. And they were just really, really excited about that because it was a lightweight, strong little engine, 4-cylinder engine. They had that little Iron Duke that they could have used that had a cast iron head and all that kind of stuff. But they wanted this Vega. And it was probably one of the biggest mistakes GM made in a long time. It's a sorry piece of trash car. The engine was lousy and just came up. It overheat, come apart. It's kind of like, you see these Cadillac engines. It's got the little, whenever you pull the head off, you can see the cooling jacket all the way around the piston. That's what it looked like. And it was the way it was put together. It just gave all kinds of issues, and it was just it had a reputation for just being a junk car.
Well, that's what everybody does. Take a racing.
Well, they pull the Vega's a good-looking car, but they put a 350 in there with a 350 turbo hydromatic transmission, and they make a hot rod car out of it, But they don't leave that silly little 4-cylinder. This friend of mine that I worked with back in the 70s, he said Chevrolet had to tool up and redesign to build something sorry, But anyway, I don't know where I got off on that. But the Volt has got a 1.4 liter engine and a 3-gallon gas tank so that you can get somewhere if you absolutely have to. It doesn't charge the battery. It pulls the car. It helps the electric motors pull the car. And that's different from just about anything else. And furthermore, you plug that one into the wall to charge the battery. See, the charging of the battery charging on a Chevy Volt comes from two places. It comes from regenerative braking, which whenever you hit the brake, it changes some circuits so that one of the motors is creating current. Matter of fact, I got some videos on my phone that I took a little screen so that whenever you're mashing the brake, you can see that the brakes are putting current into the battery. Now, if you do a lot of stopping, the battery won't have to be charged as often. Long stops. And on a hybrid vehicle, this is a rule of thumb too. You know how we always look at the front brakes and we don't pay quite as much attention to the back ones because the back ones don't wear out as fast as the front ones? That's backwards on a hybrid. On the hybrid, because the vehicle's being helped by the regenerative braking, recharging the batteries, and all the hybrids just do that, even that. You know, of course, the Chevy Volt's full electric, they say, but it's an engine in there too, so I don't know if you can, you know, but it's a plug-in. Plug a cord into the wall, takes about 8 to 10 hours to charge it if you're plugging it into the 110. If you're plugging it into 220, it takes about 4 hours to charge. But anyway, that's the way those things operate. But the regenerative braking causes the front brakes to last longer than the rear brakes on a hybrid typically. So if you're looking at the brakes on a hybrid, excuse me, pay particular attention to the rear brakes because they're probably going to wear out before the front ones are. All right, but the brakes are pretty much the same except on these Fords. You got to disable the brake system by pulling a particular fuse on some of the Ford Escapes because occasionally they'll decide to pressurize the brake system, you know, as a part of their stuff. And if you've got the calipers off and all of a sudden it decides to pressurize the brake system, it'll either smash your hand or push the pistons out or so you need to know exactly what you're doing when you're doing a hybrid on a Ford Escape hybrid. If you're doing front brakes or any of the brakes, you need to, there's a fuse you're supposed to pull and you can find out which one it is and all that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Which type of, wait a minute. How about how fast does a motor generator crank the internal combustion engine?
Where you been, Archie?
And about 1,000 RPM.
You're 2 hours late. Oh, you're just not very far. You're 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
What was that? I'm sorry. Say again.
1,000 RPM.
It's going to spin at about 1,000, yeah. One of the things that you got, yeah, it spins it at 1,000 RPM. Now that's not an engine like you're used to. It's slightly different. Kind of, it's got a different cycle. You know, so let's talk a little bit more about Atkinson cycle engine and all that. But all right, so you got it spins at about 1,000 RPM, and you know the way it feels with, like if you drive a Ford Escape, for instance, you got a key that you started up with. You start it with a key, it goes dead, and it's quiet, which seems weird. You put it in gear, when you put your foot on the accelerator, you drive off real quiet, and you don't make any noise at all. Now, if you really have to get on it, it's going to start the engine to help you. Or if you turn the AC on max, you know. Now, the battery pack in the back, these batteries on these hybrid vehicles have got to stay cool. I mean, you can't have them getting, you know, if they get too hot, they don't work as well. And they're always going to be like between 20 to 80% of charge. You don't want them going below 20%. You don't want them going above 80%.
Why?
Because it's bad for the battery. You want them to stay between 20 and 80% all the time. And they're nickel metal hydride, most of them, although a lot of them are going with lithium ion. Now, what's the difference between a nickel metal hydride and lithium ion? How many of you guys have ever used a nickel metal hydride battery? That's like, my brother bought a video camera ages ago. It had a nickel metal hydride battery, a square when you slide in there, you know. And this thing was, I mean, this is ancient history now. This is when my boys, my oldest son is nearly 30 years old. And he was a little bitty fella when we got this thing. And it was a big old thing you had to hang around here that had a VHS tape that went in it and the camera hooked to it. And so you had this hanging on a strap to use the camera. Well, the guy that sold him that $2,000 rig said, he said, what you need to do is every time you're not shooting anything, when you put it over here, you need to plug it in and charge it up. And you know, typically when you're shooting a video, it's only going to be about 8 or 10 minutes long anyway. And so we shoot about 8 or 10 minutes video and plug it in. And after we did that for a while, we found out that the battery, because I was using the camera some too, you know, but the battery would only last 10 minutes. It has a memory. You know, in other words, if you only use it for 10 minutes and put it back on charge, it won't last for 10 minutes. And these little rechargeable flashlight batteries, and so now they got rechargeable alkalines and everything else. But one way or another, we're going to rule on through this. But the nickel metal hydride's got a memory, lithium ion don't. And there are people that rebuild these battery packs by putting lithium ion cells where nickel metal hydride cells were. They got specially made ones. You know, you got a whole bunch of, and to make these hybrid batteries, we stack a whole bunch of batteries together in series. That's how you do that. On the Ford Escape, it looks like you got a whole bunch of flashlight batteries in there, all stacked together. But they're, you know, they're rechargeables and they're made in a battery pack. So does the silly little the Honda. The Honda is a totally different configuration from the Toyota and the Ford and all that. I mean, everybody's trying to do it a different way, and you got to pay attention to what you're doing, you know, because like I say, the engine will start up by itself sometimes if you don't do things just right. With all you got the engine, drain the engine, haul out, do an oil change on a hybrid. If you've got the fob close by and it sees the state of charging the battery going low because you didn't turn it off right, it may start the engine up while you get it on the lift with the oil drained out. Now, if you know what you're doing, you don't have to worry about this. But that fob needs to be at least 25 feet from the vehicle. Put it in Joe's toolbox down here, you know. I mean, that's not on all vehicles, but on some of them. Okay. Now then, so which type of hybrid electric design costs the least?
Would it be B?
That's going to be BAS design. BAS design.
What does that mean?
You'll have to look that up. That's why I'm going to make you read your book, okay? And find out what BAS means. If I just give you the answers without making you read your book, your money, the money is wasted that you pay through. Can anybody let him in on that? Has anybody read that?
No, that's why I want you to tell me what it is.
Well, you'll see it in the first chapter. Okay. Which type of hybrid? You're still got to read that first chapter now. Which type of hybrid vehicle has idle stop operation? Strong, mild, and medium hybrids.
The mild one?
Strong, mild, and medium. Why did I say strong, mild, and medium? All you heard was mild. Yeah. Technician A says most hybrids require they be plugged into the electrical outlet at night to provide electrical power to help propel the vehicle. Is that true or is that false?
That's true.
He's a buffoon. Most of them don't. Matter of fact, you can't even plug them in. Now, the cool thing about the Ford Escape was they got the 12-volt battery up there, and you can actually push a little button in there, or the way they had an initial configuration of them. And that 12-volt battery was set up so that through the electronics it would begin to charge. Like if your big battery in the back, because you're not going. Now, let me explain something about hybrids before I forget to mention this.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know anything
You're
about
not going to drive this vehicle like you say, well, if I run out of gas, I'll just drive on my electric power for a while. You're going to go about a mile and that battery's going to be dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it ain't going to go very far. Now, I will tell you that the Ford Fusion will go a mile and a half at 50 miles an hour without the engine running. You know, so, and it's a little bit different. Like
So it has to keep generating the battery?
And you hit the brake, it charges it. The engine, though, when it fires up, it charges it too. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you hit the brake a lot, like if you do a lot of stopping, like in stop and go traffic in town, the battery's always going to be hotter. And that's why the fuel economy is higher in town than it is on the highway on a hybrid.
Oh, okay.
See what I'm saying? Because the more you stop, the more battery power you're putting back there using your
Okay.
momentum and all
I
that.
got you.
That's how that works. Technician A says most hybrids are probably plugged in. He's wrong. Okay, technician B says the internal combustion engine in an HEV. Well, the internal combustion engine, and I
What's
like
HEV?
this. Craig Van Battenberg, the guy that I've learned so much about hybrids from, he calls the internal combustion engine the ICE.
Why?
Internal combustion engine.
Oh.
Okay, that's what you call the ICE. So just remember, huh?
Good way to put it.
ICE. Yeah, it makes sense.
Customs
There you go.
enforcement.
All right, we got enough on the
Message.
Hi there.
My number for the ship thing keeps on coming up.
That's you, home.
And I don't know if you can fix that, so, because my dad was supposed to do it, but it's getting worse to a point where I can't ship.
So you still enrolled out here, or
Huh?
you still enrolled out here?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
still out here.
No problem. Well, what we'll need to do,
Because
Brandon, that's all you big home.
come back in a little bit when I'm
That's
done
you.
here.
I got
We'll
class
see
in
what
now.
we need to get done.
You don't have to ship it now anyway.
All right.
Good job.
No, that's Wes's job.
It wasn't really,
No, I
that's
gotta
not really a
finish
hard
it.
job. The gear shifter, guys. Come on, how hard
That's
can a
what I'm
gear
saying.
shifter be, right? You know,
That's
so-
Brandon's job. That's his
Brandon,
job.
yeah.
Thank you.
42 other vehicle inspections where he has to check the brake lights this time, okay? One of the things I gotta tell Brandon is he's honest. He doesn't lie about this. Did you
He
check the
used
brake
to.
lights on that
He
car?
used to.
He used to.
Yeah, I know, but he learned not to because he got busted a few times. What Brandon's deal used to be was, if I can cram all these brake parts back in here and shove the shoe on the drum on before he sees it, I got away with something. You know? That used to be what he was
He
thinking.
was so dumb, boy.
But he's got better about that. He can actually fix brake
No,
pads.
that's JT.
Yeah.
JT does all
All right.
that.
Well, JT wasn't quite that bad.
No, I'm talking about putting brake pads on.
Oh yeah, but yeah, he did put some on backwards one time. But I've had other people do that too. Technician B said, and it makes a bad scrubbing noise when you do that. Technician B says the internal combustion engine in a hybrid electric vehicle will often stop running when the vehicle is stopped, and he's the one that's right. Okay. In other words, the engine may just cut off. See, the thing, the computer, and you got a computer back there with a battery. You got another one that operates the other parts. It's going to operate that. There was a Ford Escape that they had up there at the hybrid school that would not start, and nobody could figure out why it wouldn't start. Ford service engineer came and said put an engine in it. Put an engine in it, still wouldn't start. the guys that were in that team that were working on that, what they did is they split us up. There were 16 people in that class. They put us in 4 different teams. And I called, we called names for our teams, you know. And since we were working on this Gray Ford Fusion, and I called ourselves the Gray Team. Right? And I got that PowerPoint presentation that we built after doing all that. And so whenever Craig was looking at our PowerPoint, you know, he was in control of the laptop, and I loaded our PowerPoint, and he changed Gray Team to Gay Team. And we really appreciate it. Anyway,
What was wrong with
actually, what was the deal was, a lot of these engines nowadays, particularly on that one there, don't have timing marks for timing the crank and cam. What you do is you're going to bring the crankshaft around to a particular place. There's a particular hole you screw a bolt out of. You stick a pin in there. That locates the crankshaft. Now, when we get into this engine repair, this Ford Explorer engine doesn't have timing marks. Now, the one you're working on kind of does.
Okay.
But that one over there, the Explorer, like the single red cam, they don't got that. Well, the Escape is a 4-cylinder, but you have to actually lock the shafts in place here and here, and you lock the crankshaft in place. That's how you know they're in place. There's the mark, you know, they're either in. And what happened was, these guys got a transducer that hooked up to a scope, pressure transducer, and they actually they were measuring, they were watching the spark. They had a 2-trace scope. They were watching the spark and comparing it to the compression. See, whenever the compression would come up, you'd see it on the scope, and when the spark happened, you'd see it, and these were overlaid, so you could tell when the spark happened during the compression. There's no other way you can do that accurately. I mean, where you got a drawn on a graph, you got a scope with 2 traces, you got a transducer like we got out here and all that, you can make that happen. So that's what they did with a little Pico scope. And what they found out was it was out of time a little bit because the compression was over with by the time the spark happened. And they compared it to another Escape. The one that we were working on had battery problems. Okay, so they compared it to that other Escape, and the other Escape had a totally different pattern. They said somebody's going to have to loosen all these pulleys and put that pin in there, put this thing back in time, and then it'll start. See, but it had beaten the stuffings. But these guys were Top Gun mechanics, every single one of them. Everybody that was up there was paying $3,000 to spend those 4 days in that class. You know, and so it was a really good. If you got back late from a break, he made you do 25 push-ups, this kind of thing.
Really?
2 12-hour class days, 2 12-hour shop days is what you did. And the shop days took place on a weekend when the shop was closed. You know, and it was really a good school. And if you ever scrape up $3,000, you ought to go to it if you're interested in hybrid vehicles. But anyway,
I'm interested in anything that make money.
that guy is sharp as a tack. There's not a whole lot he don't know about hybrids. And he has given about 10,000 people his cell phone number. So if you're working on a hybrid vehicle and you run out of ideas, you call him up, and within 2 minutes he usually has given you the answer to what your problem is. he's sharp, I'm telling you, he's sharp. Okay, let's see. Technician A says most hybrids use the series hybrid design. Technician B says the same hybrids, that some hybrids have 42-volt batteries. Which technician is correct?
Technician B's right.
That's going to be B. Electric motors are better to propel an internal combustion engine for what reason? A, they do not burn fuel and therefore do not release carbon dioxide into the environment. Let me pause for a second to say there's nothing wrong with putting carbon dioxide in the environment. If the trees and the grass could talk and they knew we were trying to cut off their air supply, they'd get us their branches and get us by the throat. But they like the carbon dioxide, and the atomic weight of carbon dioxide is 44, and oxygen and nitrogen is like 14 and 16. So the carbon dioxide lays close to the ground anyway. It ain't going up there to cause any problems. Give me a break. All right, so, well, I'll tell you what. All right, so.
Why is it so strict with emissions?
Because they're trying to control everything.
So somebody scared them into thinking global warming.
Yeah, that's a big bunch of hooey. All right.
I know that.
Yeah, but they're just not worried about it. I mean, we breathe out carbon dioxide. They say, and water vapor is a pollutant. Yeah, they're even saying that. These people are just totally over the top. You know, they're trying to get control of everything, but I don't want to. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to get political on you, but I mean, you just gotta think scientifically about stuff, and you don't eat what people force feed you about that nonsense. Right. Because LA people are being indoctrinated in school. Okay. And they really are. You know, that stuff is being pushed on all the school kids and everything, and that's something right about that. Okay, B, they're quiet. C, they produce high torque at low speeds. All of the above.
All of them.
Now, we talked about transmissions yesterday, and it's really important for me. There was something, I was watching that little thing I told you about Driveline. There was something I meant to say that I needed to say that I forgot. The reason you have so many gears, have you noticed how you got more and more and more gears on your cars nowadays? I mean, like you have 6 speeds and all this stuff. So now what they want to do is keep the engine in its power band. It starts off idling, it ain't got a lot of power until it reaches a certain RPM. When it reaches above a certain RPM, the power falls off.
Right.
If you look at it on a dyno, it goes up and then it drops off at about 3,600, depending on the dynamics of the intake stream and all that. But the point is, all of these gears that you're going through are designed so that your engine is always during in the band where it's pulling the hardest and is the most efficient. With the exception of highway cruise, when your overdrive is there and you're running about 1,200 RPM, you don't need to be in a power curve then. Okay, now let me go on before I get off on a rabbit trail.
I like when you talk. He tells us most of it.
All of the following are characteristic of a hybrid vehicle except A, lower amount of carbon dioxide, blah. B, lower fuel economy. C, high voltages. Or D, quiet.
And B.
Yeah, lower fuel economy, However, like I say, if you drive a lot in town, you're going to do better on fuel than if you're on the road a lot. Here's another thing about hybrid vehicles that Consumer Reports, who usually do some pretty good work, said that they had done an analysis of how much you spend on buying a hybrid vehicle, and they compared it to how much money you save buying fuel and all this kind of stuff. And they said that the only hybrid that was profitable to buy and operate that would actually save you money was the little bitty Toyota Prius. All the rest of them, like your big Highlander hybrids and all of that, those right there are you'd have to drive them 10,000 miles, 10 years and put over 100,000 miles on them, and then you would break even.
On the hybrid?
Yeah, except for Prius. Now, Prius, you're going to save money getting a Prius, because a Prius gets dynamite gas mileage.
Yeah,
But all
you
the
can
other
fill it
ones
up
are
for
the
like
ones.
$10.
Yeah, I know. And you can buy hybrid vehicles that are used for not a whole lot of money. You can go on eBay and find you a Toyota Camry hybrid for not a whole lot, or a Nissan, whatever. But anyway, one way or another, let's drop on down here. Technician A says a major limitation of electric vehicles is their short range. He's right.
That's true.
Technician B says a major advantage of electric vehicles is their quiet operation. He's right too. However, like we were talking about that Tesla that I was looking at, the guy says that people, they're talking about making them make noise so they're coming because they're so quiet, What's the term for the twist and force that causes vehicles to accelerate? The twisting force. Torque, yeah, think about your torque wrench. And we were talking about in your crankshaft, you got the torque. All right, which of the following is not a disadvantage of a battery-powered vehicle? Noisy, that's right. Yeah, some of this stuff's just no-brainer stuff. Technician A says many components used on today's hybrid electric vehicles were first used on GM's EV1. He's right. Technician B says the energy crisis in the 1970s forced Americans to examine their dependence on fossil fuel. Which technician is correct? Both technicians. Incidentally, oil production in this country is up about 18% since 2008. The oil companies, and part of the reason is because oil is so much per barrel. When I was working in Southeast Texas in the oil business down there at that offshore services company, and also, we dealt with some of the onshore stuff, there were these oil companies all around down there. People were talking about how they were drilling oil wells and they were capping them. They'd find oil, they'd cap the well. They'd drill, they'd find oil, they'd cap the well. And all because they were going to wait till the price went up and make more money. See what I'm saying? It was $13 a barrel at the time, and everybody was like, "Oh man, this is great," But it was a lot of offshore. There was 500-600 oil rigs out there in the Gulf, and not just drilling rigs. I'm talking about rigs that were pumping the oil out. And but we were loading stuff on the boat, drilling mud and all that kind of stuff, and lignite and whatever to go out there for the oil platforms. Had helicopters, and our company flew people out to the rigs and that kind of stuff. We had some pretty spectacular helicopter crashes now and again too. It was always a lot of fun. We didn't lose any people, but one of these this helicopter taking off from a barge, and it was an A-Star, one of them Aerospatiale. Over in Europe they call it a squirrel, but they don't want to call it a squirrel over here because a squirrel is like, squirrely, so they call it an A-star. So this thing's taken off from a barge and it's sitting on the skids out there, and so this guy's he's actually sitting on a barge. The guy's getting ready to take off, and so he gets in there and he fires up the turbine and everything starts spinning. And so he goes to take off, like they do, where he picks up and goes like that. Well, by the time a big swell comes up there and raises the barge up, the tail rotor hits the deck. Boom! It comes back down. It doesn't hurt the pilot, but it sure tore the helicopter all to pieces. And that kind of stuff would happen. I mean, that's dangerous stuff. There's one guy forgot to tie his helicopter down after he landed on the oil rig. When he got out there, the wind blew it off there.
I bet you got fired.
Yeah, well, he got fussed at. Okay,
You got fussed at over $100,000. How much is it?
well, the engine was $50,000.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, just the engine. But anyway, and that was a little D model used helicopter like your baby birds. That's what that was. Okay, technician A says many components. Blah. We already done that. Both technicians are right. 15. Technician A says a diesel hybrid is not possible.
I think it would be.
Oh, he's a buffoon. He don't know what he's talking about. It is. Technician B says a diesel hybrid is possible but not cost effective enough for production at this time. And B is the right guy. I'm going to tell you something else though. And I'm not against hybrid vehicles so much. It's not really a bad way to go. But if somebody would set up a little small engine, electronic diesel with a the turbocharger on it, it would just about render hybrids unnecessary. I drove a diesel Rabbit in 1983, and I've seen that thing get 55 miles to the gallon, and it would scoot. It was a diesel. It was a high-speed diesel. It turned 5,000, 6,000 RPM. If you knew how to set the injector pump up and everything, you could make it run about as good as a gas burner. But on the other hand, if you got particulate filters and stuff, if like these Power Stroke diesels that has the newest emission standards on it, if it goes driving through Los Angeles, California, the air coming out the tailpipe on that truck is cleaner than the air that's going in. It's cleaning the air as it drives through the city. See what I'm saying?
That's cool.
It really is. I mean, but the particulate filter helps that. But every so often, the particulate filter got to clean itself like an oven. It's got to get real hot, to burn that up. But anyway.
My uncle he took and put a Nissan diesel in a little truck, and he's getting probably about 50 miles a gallon.
Yeah, they would. And those little Japanese Toyo Kojo engines that were in Escorts and Tempos, they would get 50 miles to the gallon. And I mean, my son drove that '83 Rabbit. Whenever he came over here when he was 18 from Georgia, I gave him an '83 diesel Rabbit. It had about 400,000 miles on it, and he drove that doggone thing, just loved it because he didn't hardly ever buy any fuel. And my dad put an additional gas tank on it that he had built out of aluminum that was fit back in there, and it had an extra. He could go 500-600 miles without buying a drop of any kind of fuel because of all of the fuel economy it would get.
He put two gas.
He had to put he had an aluminum gas tank that was square that would fit just inside in front of the hatch. And he just had a line going down there that would gravity feed into the tank. So whenever this one got low, it would automatically be trickling more fuel in there. So he never even really had to. Well, he'd fill up this tank and he'd fill up this tank, But it was just interesting how he had that fixed up. My dad always thought outside the box anyhow. All right, now then, what we got here, hybrid vehicles can operate only in the HOV
What does
lane.
that stand for?
Yeah, that's the one.
I know what it is. I got a ticket for being one. What's that?
Well, whenever you're actual high occupant vehicle, whenever you've got a carpool, if I was driving a 7-passenger whatever, like a SUV or something, and I had all of you guys in there with me, and I could drive in that lane. But if you're by yourself, you better not be in one of those lanes.
Because I got a ticket for it. It's like
What's that?
$345.
Yeah, and where was that?
Nashville.
Nashville. That's it. You messed up on that.
Does Alabama have those lanes?
No.
Yeah, he was like.
Are they marked if you come
No,
across
Alabama don't have it.
Yeah, Alabama doesn't have any. But the fact is, if you're in a Prius or one of these, you can be by yourself in an electric vehicle and drive there.
Really?
Yeah, that's the point. Because they're considering they're trying to encourage people to carpool, so there's not as many cars out there, and B to drive hybrid vehicles so they save energy and all that kind of stuff.
Are these lanes identified?
Yeah. Yeah, you're not. Yeah, you don't want to be blindsided, do you? But yeah, they're identified. But what makes the BAS system, BAS, attractive for buyers.
That's it.
Moderate increase in fuel economy versus conventional gasoline powered vehicles. Lowest cost of all the hybrid systems, both A and B.
See,
Now, your job is to find out what BAS means. What is a BAS system?
badass system.
No, I ain't working. That's what your car has on it. Or all of your cars that you drift with and everything. You know? Follow all of my pictures on his Facebook page of these cars he's driving, popping wheelies and going. All right, so. The high voltage battery in most full hybrid electric vehicles provides how many volts fully charged?
200.
Usually 2 to 300. Usually 2 to 300. Now like I say, on a Ford Fusion, if you're looking at your scan tool, you're probably going to see 600 volts back there occasionally. All right. In what year did the state of California require zero emission vehicle? 98.
In 98?
98. 98. What type of motor or engine produces more torque at lower speed? Electric. That's not a hard question.
Gasoline.
Not gasoline. The abbreviation HEV stands for hybrid electric vehicle. Anything that has more than one way to pull the vehicle is a hybrid. I guess if you had, let me ask this: if you've got a bicycle that's got pedals that you can pedal, and it's also got an engine on it you can fire up and let it. That's a hybrid. Doesn't have to be electric, you know. As long as it's got. That's basically the definition of a hybrid. If it's got more than one way to pull it. Okay. Which of the following is not a disadvantage of operating a hybrid vehicle?
Wait,
Reduced
skip one.
engine oil life.
Skip.
That's D.
Skip 22.
The initial cost is pretty high.
Skip number 22, Mr.
Did I skip 22?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Suck it up. Okay, no, I'm kidding. Technician A says full hybrid electric vehicles need to be plugged into a standard AC electrical outfit to charge. No, he's not right. Technician B says the high voltage battery in an HEV is a generator driven by the internal combustion engine for recharging. He's right. And it also uses the braking, regenerative braking. In a series hybrid vehicle, the internal combustion engine powers the vehicle only when increased horsepower is needed. False. Both of those electric motors, and one of the things you guys are going to find very interesting about this is you'll have your internal combustion engine and you'll have your MG1 and MG2, which is your two motors in there. One of them is bigger than the other one. And for some of your gear ratios, they got a planetary gear set in there that gives you your transmission ranges. And in some of your different gear ranges, one of the motors will be turning backwards.
How?
Never will the internal combustion engine turn backwards. But the electric motors sometimes will turn backwards to give you the gear ratios. See what I'm saying?
We'll turn backwards?
Yeah, it'll actually, this one here will be turning forward, that there will be turning backwards, and that operates with that planetary gear set to give you your different gear ratios.
Oh, okay.
See where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Now, the internal combustion engine's always turning the same way.
Right.
See, so you just always remember that your electric motors can turn backward, but your ICE never will. So you're going to see a little chart sooner or later. I'm going to show you about them. So just remember that. So they're not always turning in the same direction all the time. Sometimes.
I know that.
Yep. And well, that's why you're in school. All right. Now then, let's see. Which one of these is not an advantage of the series hybrid design? Single speed gearbox can be used. Smaller internal combustion engine. No transmission is necessary. Ta-da! All of those are advantages of the series hybrid.
Skip 25.
Did I miss skip 25? I'm good at that, aren't I? Well, which of these statements about series hybrid electric vehicles are true? Both A and B. The internal combustion engine, the ICE, turns a generator to charge a battery, and the engine never powers a vehicle directly. All right. You got that? Both A and B. All right. That's a series hybrid now. Now you're going to learn more about how to determine, what that means as we go. Which of these is not an advantage of a series hybrid design? Huh?
It's going to be B.
That's going to be D.
D?
Yeah, dog.
D.
Which is not an advantage of a series hybrid design. Single speed gearbox, smaller internal combustion, no transmission necessary. They're advantages.
Hold on, we skipped number
Every one
27.
of them are advantages. That's 26.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm talking about number 27.
Yeah.
Me too.
Huh?
I know what you're talking about,
I
27.
did too, but I got number 27 is going to be B.
Technician
right?
A says a diesel hybrid vehicle is not possible. Oh, well, it has not been mass produced due to cost. And that sounds like a repeat of that previous question, and it pretty much is.
So is it B?
Yeah, that's going to be a B. Yeah. Technician A says in a parallel hybrid design, Now, actually, the diesel, the only people that I know of was even working on a diesel hybrid was Nissan. They were working on that for a while.
Yeah, I think they've almost got it.
Yeah. And Technician A says in parallel hybrid design, only the electric motor is connected to the transmission. Technician B says in a parallel hybrid design, the vehicle will be propelled by the electric traction motor, the internal combustion engine, or both. Technician B is right. In an HEV using a parallel hybrid design, what is the term used to describe driving conditions where the internal combustion engine's power is used to propel the vehicle as well as charge the battery? Power split, yeah. And some hybrid electric vehicles can operate using the electric motor alone or with the assist of the internal combustion engine.
That's true.
That is true.
I seen a vehicle that was said to be a V6 or a V8, and to save fuel economy, it turned on and off certain cylinders in the engine.
Yeah, they do that.
That was-
Chevrolet does it.
Chevrolet does it, and the way that they do that, the way Chevrolet does that is they actually have it fixed so that they can make the valves stop operating at the same time.
How do they do that?
They've actually got a little hydraulic solenoid in there. As a matter of fact, I can show you how some of the Toyotas and stuff do it. They've actually got a little, the Hondas, I think it is, have got a little pin that moves and the rocker arm quits
Just like a
moving.
VTEC.
Yeah, sort of like, yeah. But what happens there, the way that works is if it shuts off every other cylinder, it's trapped the exhaust in there. It does it at the time where it traps the exhaust, and the exhaust that's trapped in that cylinder actually acts like a spring, boing, 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 because so the valves aren't opening anymore, and you got the exhaust trapped in there, and it's like that little springiness,
Gotta have a
keeps
good
it
head
from being,
gasket.
huh?
Gotta have a good head gasket.
Yeah, it does, but I mean, basically though, the pressure's not as high as it is whenever you got a firing cylinder.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty slick
Yeah.
how they do that. I mean, it's not a bad thing that they're doing there. But they tried that with Cadillac a long time ago, and it didn't work with the flip, and they had to actually, discombobulate it. They were doing it the wrong way, and then they came up with a way that make it work. But there was actually a kit you could get back when gas went up so high one time, to where you could take one of these big late 70s, early 80s Oldsmobiles that had the 455 in it and all that, and you would take half the pistons out and put weights in there.
What?
Yeah, you would turn it into a four-cylinder to help. I mean, the engine looked the same, but four of the holes had weights, just with open holes in them going up and down in there.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it was in one of the magazines that trade magazines I read, Motor Service.
Why? Why would you do that?
Because you don't want to burn as much gas. I think it's silly. I mean, you're used to driving something with a 455 in it, and now all of a sudden you got half that many cubic inches.
Yeah.
I don't know. They actually did one to see how they liked it. Anyway.
What'd they say about it? Did they like it?
They didn't. I did not go out and buy a bunch of weights to put in mine. All right, but anyway, let me go conclude this.